For this quick concept, I'm going to talk about draw to X, which is when you're drawing. And I have this definition that says, when you're drawing and the draw cards that you're using, place a limit on your hand size after they are played. The classic version of this is, of course, things that say, like, draw until you have, well, X cards in hand. But there's others that, will play about the same. For instance, Minion, you discard your hand, you get a 4-card hand. Scholar, discard your hand, get a 7-card hand. Hunting Lodge, discard your hand, get a 5-card hand. So these are also really play as draw to X when you're using them for draw. So all of this stuff kind of applies to any of these cases, and maybe even a card called Menagerie, but that one's a little bit more on the edge. Anyways, these draw cards work differently because when you're using cards that say like +3 cards, you can say I'm going to play a village, I'm going to play the smithy, I'm going to play my lab, I'm going to play, etc. And you can basically just keep playing these draw cards, get to the end of your draw, and then kind of decide what you're going to do with what you have in your hand at this point. But draw to X isn't that way. You kind of have to get your stuff done, your payload, before you are starting to play more draw. And the reason for that is because, well, you have to, if you want to keep drawing, and you have 6 cards in hand and you have something that says drop to 6, you gotta decrease your hand size before you are able to draw more. And so, you have to be playing your Bard, your Remodel, whatever, before you end up playing more draw after that. And so, this means treasures are not so amazing because, with the exception of Black Market, you can't play treasure before you play more action cards for the most part. And so you're going to place a larger emphasis on things that are giving coins during your action phase, other forms of payload, like, as I say, remodeling, etc., where this is something that you can do. And then the other thing is that you need a lot of villages for consistency. There's some draw to X that is Cursed Village, Hunting Lodge, or it's a village itself. But for the ones that aren't, because you have to be playing more before you draw, what happens is that, there's normally you would go village, draw, etc. In this case, you have to go village, terminal payload card draw. And so, you have to have more front loading of this village. You need to have more villages in your starting hand in order to make your turns work, just because you have to be playing these terminals before you end up playing your draw cards. And so you're generally going to need quite a few more villages, especially if your draw to X isn't a village, though even in those cases somewhat, in order to have this turn consistency, just because you do have to play stuff before you're playing your draw card. Mixing non-draw to X with draw to X is not usually a great thing. I mean, there's Hunting Lodge, that's an exception, just because it kind of supports both. But in general, they don't mix well together. Clearly, you can't really, for the most part, make it so that you are going to be playing your draw to X and then your non-draw to X. If you play your non-draw to X first, it'll be village, smithy, and then my watchtower doesn't do anything. So that doesn't work so hot. But a lot of the time, even in these cases where you have a non-draw to X option available, part of the reason you'll go to draw to X is because, this is a really good thing to be doing early often. And the reason for that is because one of the things that you like to do early is you like to trash cards, particularly out of your hand. So, if we're thinking about a card like Forager, this non-terminal trasher, and we look and we say, okay, I'm going to play village, I'm going to play my Forager, I'm going to play my watchtower. That watchtower is certainly drawing a lot more than a +2 cards or even a +3 cards is going to at that point. So you get a little bit more pace with draw to X early. And so, in those cases where you get that pace, you're going to kind of default to draw to X just because it does so much better for you early than the non-draw to X card. And so that's something to balance out, is is my power from playing not draw to X going to be good enough to make up for this little deficit at the start that I might get from playing draw to X to start the game, just because it's so much better for me early. It's something to balance out. There's no universal rule for it, but it's a decision you have to make, and decisions make fun Dominion.